This is the first ever book report by J&J where we read a book and we'll talk about it and we'll discuss the book and what we liked and what we disliked about the book. And we have a never-ending supply of books to talk about because they are still being written today. So today, we're talking about the book Eragon. Now, I had the pleasure of reading Eragon back when I want to say Eldest first came out. So a
Yep.
little bit after Eragon first came out, literally just uh, the beginning of this year, I restarted the book series and was about halfway through Bersinger when they announced the TV show coming to Disney Plus. And then when I finished Bersinger, I pushed Joseph here to read the book series, and he is now about halfway through Eldest. But today we will be talking about Aragon.
Yeah. The other E1.
Yeah, I'm honestly disappointed they didn't just nail them all E's. But anyway,
Yeah. Seems like a bit of an oversight on Christopher's part, but we'll let it slide.
well, yeah, we'll let it slide because it's
Yeah.
a good series.
Uh,
Anyway,
that said, I am Jay and that is Jay. And today we're going to talk about books.
yes, I am Jay of J&J, and that's Jay of J&J.
Yes. Uh, just so you understand how this works, this is the definitive book report. Once you've heard this, you won't need to listen to anything else about the book.
Yeah, we are the utmost qualified people of all time. I have a Nobel Peace Prize in YouTube videos.
And you can't disprove it. So,
Nope.
here we are.
Yes. So Aragon was written by Christopher Paolini at the age of 19, I think.
Yeah.
And of course he had help from his mom and dad who are also authors, though I don't know any of their work. I just know that they are authors. I know that like when I say he had help from them, I just mean
Yeah.
that they were the editors. They
Yeah.
went in and they made sure they didn't like so he wrote this book and I think he did a really great job. And the series only gets better.
Yeah.
And even in the book, it gets better as it goes, it seems.
Yeah. It's
The
uh it's a little telling that it fulfills the old idea of what's it called? The like 16-year-old savior fantasy of some kid who's
a coming
entirely
of
too
age.
young to be dealing who's it's a coming of age story, but also one of those ones that dips into the this kid is entirely too young to be dealing with the problems that are facing him, yet he somehow makes it through it anyways, which is
Yeah,
pretty much the only thing about the book that I don't really care for. Other than
yeah,
that, everything is fine.
that seems fair. See, the thing is, when I read it, I was about Aragon's
Yeah.
age or younger,
Yeah.
so I enjoyed it really well. But with us being like in our mid 20s now,
Yeah.
reading it, I mean, yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
That's like when I was reading that book by Brandon Sanderson. I didn't enjoy it, but then again, I'm not the age that that book was meant for.
Oh
So,
yeah.
but
100%. If I was 16 reading that book, I would be all over it. It would be the best thing. But now
oh
that
yeah,
I'm
like
older, I'm like if you put 16-year-old me in that situation, I would die horrifically.
right, like when
Yeah.
I was in middle school, I read The Hunger Games,
Yeah. Yeah,
but then
both
when
of
I
us read
was
The
in
Hunger Games and we were like, "Oh yeah, we could totally do this."
right, but
No.
then when I
No
was
we
in high
couldn't.
school, I was in high school and I read Divergent. I thought that was dumb because
Yeah.
I was older than what the book was meant
Yeah.
for. Anyway,
Yep.
um,
That
book
said,
starts out, it starts
yeah.
out solid, comes in the prologue, uh, introduces
Well,
us to Arya and Durza.
all of that last bit to say, just because the book is meant for a younger audience, it doesn't mean people like me, who are well beyond its range, can't enjoy it. It's got a lot
True.
of good stuff in there, even though
Now,
it is
see,
kind of aimed lower. Yeah,
I agree with that too.
yeah,
Also, you got to be careful because sometimes I'll come off reading a book that was clearly written by an English professor, like
yeah,
Lord of the Rings, or I'll read something like The Wheel of Time, and then if I go back and read another book that was geared toward a different audience or a younger audience, it's just that book seems like it's terrible because it's pointed at
Yeah.
someone who's not reading all these insanely detailed books like I've been reading lately. So
Yeah.
you got to like shift your mindset. And I think Aragon, I think the whole inheritance cycle actually like seems to be in between. Like
Yeah.
there's definitely elements to where middle schoolers and high schoolers can enjoy this, but I also feel like it's right in that sweet spot, that middle ground where older people can read
Yeah.
it and still enjoy it as well.
Yeah. It's got enough.
Where
It's got enough depth to keep. It's got enough depth to keep older people interested, and enough action and other nonsense to keep the younger folks hooked. Which is
really,
in.
whereas like if
Yeah.
a younger person was trying to read Game of Thrones, they would
Yes.
be
Yes.
bored out of their minds,
Yeah. It's
you know.
it's a testament to Christopher Paolini themselves that they managed that, which is already a difficult thing to do, and at a younger age than most people. So
Yes,
yeah.
truly.
Yeah.
And he's still writing to this day,
Yeah.
so thank God. Um,
That said,
so yeah,
yeah, we
the
can cut
prologue
back to the prologue
introduces,
now.
yeah, it introduces Arya and Durza, and it also introduces someone else in the prologue, but Joseph does not know who they are yet, so I will not talk about that.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter.
Yeah, because they're dead anyway. Because
Anyways,
it was
yeah,
it was one of those elves who was with Arya, but they're dead now
yep,
because they died in the beginning.
yep.
So
Anyways,
we we're also introduced to Urgles, right? Urgles are
yes,
in
this is the
the
first
prologue
description
from
of Urgles.
which I think the movie actually almost did that scene shot for shot.
Yeah,
If I remember correctly, the movie opens up with the elves. It's been years since I've seen the movie, but the
same.
movie
Yes,
opens up with the elves riding with Saphira's egg, and then Durza comes out of nowhere, and the Urgles are there, and then Arya sends it away. And I think whoever directed that movie read the prologue and then read the back of the book and decided to make a movie because that
yeah,
prologue
pretty
in the
much.
movie was almost shot for shot.
It
So
was the M Night Avatar of movie to book adaptations.
it was really bad.
Yeah.
Arya is hopeless and sends the egg off towards the spine, which is where
Yes.
Eragon is at.
And as far as we know, she dies as well. Everybody goes down, and
Yeah,
it's
everybody
left
goes
up in the
down.
air how they're what's it called? How they fared, who did or did not survive. And we also start to get to see he kicked it out pretty openly at the beginning with the different types of magic and what magic can and can't do, uh, and what it's like for different magic users to use magic. Because every time Durza does it, he does it with with like malice in his voice every time he launches into an attack, and he spares nobody, not his allies or anybody, from the effects of his magic. He's willing to sacrifice anybody to get what he wants. And Arya, who has the option of sending something and possibly even herself, we don't really know at this point, out of the situation, chooses to do what she knows she can do rather than save herself. You know, she's got the classic soldier in a battlefield choosing to carry out their mission rather than save themselves.
Meanwhile,
Yeah.
Aragon can't even shoot a deer with a limp with a bow.
Well, he
Loser.
goes to, but
Loser.
then yeah, it cuts away from that
Egg.
to go on the focus of the book, which is Aragon, believe it or
But
not.
like I'm saying,
Yeah.
even when the egg appeared in the spine in front of Aragon, that deer couldn't have gotten far. And then instead of going after it, he decides
Yeah.
to go home.
We see Aragon, who's this almost like nobody farm boy who's just hunting in a series of mountains that they refer to as the Spine. He's been tracking some deer for a while now. The deer's got a limp.
The spine is a place of superstitious for the people in
Yes. Carvajal,
Carvajal.
which is
Yep. The
Aragon's
town
home.
that's
Yes.
close to the spine.
Yes.
Even though they don't like the spine, they live
Yes.
by it. So
Yeah, you're right. We also do get a bit of backstory about the Spine, being that the Spine, it's a large mountain range that has old superstitions around it. A king long past tried to march his army in there and lost like half of his forces. So a lot of
Yeah.
people see the spine as this not
Haunted,
yeah, it's like a
haunted
haunted
area.
area. It's not the edge of the world. People know what's beyond the spine, but it's this area of vast danger that people would rather stay away from if they could.
Very
Yeah.
superstitious
Yeah.
people.
And lo and behold, it's in the spine where weird magic stuff happens. And
Like the egg
yeah.
appearing in front of
And what
Eragon.
Aragon sees to be a weird stone of some kind pops up in the middle of an explosion. Yeah. From there, the book starts to
Yes.
move into Aragon with the stone, trying to figure out what the stone is. He
It
shows
gets
it
a
to a
little
couple of
boring around
people.
this part.
Yeah. It gets a little
If you can,
slow as he sets up exactly what
talking.
Aragon is like and what his hometown is like so that he
And
can
then it
take
sets
it all
up
away
like
from him. Yeah.
and then it sets up, the people in the
Yes.
village
Yes. Yes.
like
Yes.
Horst and Sloane
Yes.
and Roran and Katrina and Garrow even.
Yep.
It sets up those main people right there. And then
Yep. It
sets
sets up
up
all the main
because
people and then does the classic hero's journey thing of breaking everything and forcing the kid away from there as fast as possible by
right,
introducing a few notable peoples referred to as the Razak.
people
Yeah.
is used loosely here. Now, Aragon takes the
Yes.
stone and he takes it back into the village and he tries to barter with Sloane, the butcher, which is setting up Sloane's character, who has a special distaste for the spine because his wife died in the spine, if I remember correctly.
I think didn't she
Either that
commit
or she just
suicide?
disappeared. Did she just disappear into the spine
She
or something
died.
like that?
I think, if I remember correctly, she threw herself over the waterfall, which is why he hates the spine. I
Right.
think Sloane has lead. The book sets it up so that Sloane really believes all superstitions about the spine, and it suggests that he thinks that it may be responsible for his wife losing her will to live, more or less, and
Right.
dying in the spine.
Yeah, and so
Yeah,
this is setting up, Aragon is about to trade like measly scraps for the stone, and then
yeah,
Sloane's like, "Where'd you get the stone?" And he was like, "The spine." And then it just sets up like
yeah,
a little bit of backstory for Sloane, saying like he hates the
yeah.
spine, all that. He's a dick.
Yeah, he hates Aragon and Aragon's
He hates Aragon and their
surrogate
family, all
father,
that.
who
Yeah,
is his uncle.
yeah.
Yes.
And after that, Horse comes in and buys meat for Aragon and them, and he offers what Aragon a job for the summer, wasn't that?
Yes.
Isn't that what he
He was
did?
going to work
Yeah,
off
to help
the
pay
price of
him
the meat.
back for the
Yes.
meat that he bought.
Yes.
Right. So then after that, we see Katrina, and I, th I don't think Roran was there. Uh, Katrina talks to Aragon about
Yes.
Roran,
Yes.
right? Like asked to give him a message and all that.
Yes.
Aragon goes home, shows Garrow the stone, and like I think from the point of where we see Horst and Aragon talk about the egg to the point where the egg hatches, the movie cuts out everything in between and just
Yeah.
goes from there.
100%.
If I remember correctly, the
Yeah.
movie misses a whole like there's a whole portion of the book later on that the movie
Yeah.
misses too. Um, So Aragon is trying to figure out what this stone is. The traders come to town, and he takes it to the traders, and they
Yep.
can't figure it out either. And
Okay.
it slows down a little bit right around here while we're establishing more of the characters and more of the town.
Yep.
It seems like. So the Razak are there, and they come looking for the stone because Galbatorix knows that the stone was sent in that general direction. Uh, Razak kill Garrow, which sparks Aragon on his quest for vengeance. He hooks up with Brahm, who is the local storyteller in Carvajal, and he knows all about the dragons and the dragon riders, and he
And at
knows
this point,
like yeah,
the dragon
he
has
will.
hatched.
The dragon has
Yes.
hatched.
Yes.
It's Saphira, who he
Yes.
gets that idea after listening to a bunch of names from Brahm. Uh, the Razak after Saphira has been hatched, the Razak kill Garrow, and this just like makes
Yes.
Eragon so mad, and he decides to go after the Razak.
And
So
here's the
Brahm,
inciting incident.
yes,
It's his uncle dies and he wants revenge. And Brahm is
that's
willing
yeah,
to
that's the
travel with
push.
him and train him in order to get him there.
Yes. So Brahm and Aragon go, their main goal is to hunt the Razak. Whereas in the movie, I think the Razak weren't even mentioned after they were looking for
Uh,
Aragon in the town.
in general, in the movie, they leave to hunt the Razak, and then while they're going to a different
They
city, they
decide to
get
just go
attacked by the
to
Razak, and they kill them and move forwards.
right.
It's wild.
Yeah, and then
Anyways,
they just
yeah.
decide, yeah, they
And then
decide
they
to go
just
to
kill them and move on. So,
and the movie cuts out Jode, which I think is
yes.
an important
Yes.
character because he does more important stuff later on in the series. So Brahmin, Aragon, and Saphira, all while Aragon is being trained by Brahm, they are
Yes.
moving, through Allegasia, hunting the Razak. They go to Tiem. Um, then after Tiem, they go through these smaller towns where they see one of the smaller towns, had like every villager piled up in
That
a
was
in a
before.
pile.
It was on the
Yeah,
road. It was on the way to TM. It was
yeah,
what was it? The
like
place where Warren was supposed to. I don't remember the name of it. It starts with like a TH.
yeah, but like
And they
every
go
villager
there, they
has been
see that, and
piled
then they
up.
go to the next city, and then
That's
they
where
meet the
Aragon
Urgles, and he
used.
uses
That's
magic.
where Aragon uses magic the first
Yes.
time when he uses the Urgles,
Yes.
and then they go to
And then they
another
make it to
city.
TM.
Yeah, they make it to TM,
Yeah.
and then after that, they make it to a city eventually where they are, held at like sword point, spear point, and they're like, "We just want supplies," and they're like, "All right, we'll have someone fetch it for you, and then leave our town." So that just
Yes.
shows you what state Allegasia is in.
Yes.
Meanwhile, you have something like Carvajal, which is on the edge of
Yeah.
Allegasia.
On the edge of the Empire's civilization.
And they're, besides the Razak visit, they're just oblivious to
Yes.
everything. Meanwhile, the closer you get
Yes.
to the capital, the more war torn
Yes.
the area is and how suspicious everybody
Yeah.
is.
They've also
After that,
setting
what's
up
up?
the movement of the Urgles. The
Yes.
Urgles, who are essentially roving bands of weird bandits.
Think like
Yeah.
um, a mix between like Uruk-hai from Lord of the Rings
Yeah.
and like the bad guys from the Wheel of Time series. I forget their name, and like Minotaurs, like a mix of all those. They're like really tall,
They can get
horned,
from the size of a regular man to like 8 or 9 feet tall. They have all these different things, and they're usually set up in like what's it called
orcs from
warring clans
yeah,
and
warring
tribes.
clans like orcs from like
However,
Skyrim or something.
they on their way to TM, they hear all these reports that the clans are shifting. All the Urgles are moving throughout the Empire, and they've stopped fighting with each other as much, which is questionable, to say the least. Then they make it to TM and they meet Jode, who turns out to be an old friend of Brahms from
Who
Brahms'
apparently like
mysterious past.
yeah,
Yes.
Brahms passed and Joe, and even after Brahm telling Aragon not to tell anybody about Saphira, Brahm just tells Jode. So Jode obviously knows some stuff. We don't
Yes.
know what yet at this point in the book. And then we also meet Angela the herbalist, who
Yes.
gives Aragon his
Yes. Yes.
future,
Yes.
and it's probably one of the diciest futures ever because he's trying not to give away his
Yes.
plan for the book series at this point. But
It's classic. Uh, it's the
you
fortune you
you
would want
will
to
or
hear
will
if you
not.
were a young kid, and that you're going to do amazing things or die horribly. You're also going to fall in love with some royal person and be betrayed. And you're like, okay, that's got some ups and downs. I can work with this.
And then the one thing that she said that really stuck out was you will not, or you will leave
Yes,
Allegasia.
you will leave the Empire or Alagasia and never return.
Yes.
Yes,
Uh,
which
Now,
broke him.
yes, I wish you were done with the series. Anyway, because I
Me
would love
too.
to talk about everything,
We'll get
but
there.
I can't. Yes,
The final
eventually.
one we'll do. We do have plans to do these for each of the books in the Inheritance series, and with the last one, we'll probably have a big wrap up of some of our favorite story threads and whatnot from throughout the series.
Right.
So we're skipping over a fair bit, and we're also not talking about certain bits because we'll get to them eventually. So
So after Gilead, they go. Where do they go after that? It's
is
been so long.
I'm pretty sure Gilead is where he meets Durza, yeah, because he gets captured with Murtagh. And it was
No, not yet.
Drosleona where
Oh,
Hellgrind
Drosleona.
is. Yes.
Yeah, they go to
Yes, they go to
Drosleona.
Drosleona because that's where the shipments of Seether
They
oil
get
have been sent.
they get shown by, or the Razak find them, and
Yes.
they're like running, and what's his name? Brahm gets stabbed, right?
Yes. They go to Drosleona and get ambushed by the Razak. They go to Drosleona because that's where they think the Razak are. They start trying to come up with a plan to get the Razak, and then the Razak ambush them. They try
Yes.
to run, but the Razak catch up to them, tie both of them up, and then try to kill Eragon. But essentially, they get what's it called?
They ambush
The
themselves.
Razak. Somebody ambushes the ambushers,
Yes.
and as the Razak are running, one of them throws a knife at Eragon, and Brahm jumps in front of it to save him.
Enter one of
Yes,
my favorite characters of the entire series,
Murtagh.
Murtagh,
Yes,
which, never mind. Um,
we'll talk about it later. Anyways, he's a
right.
mysterious dude who says he was hunting the Razak and
And
has a
stumbled
fair bit of
upon,
intelligence to him.
yeah, and stumbled
Yeah.
upon Aragon and notices that he's a writer, and he's like, "Oh,
Yes.
hey,
Yeah.
that'll help."
Yeah.
So I don't remember what happens, but I remember Aragon getting captured after he's been having some
Yes.
dreams about this chick.
Yes. Uh, weird prophetic type dreams. It's Aragon can't tell whether or not he's dreaming about something or whether he's seeing somebody in real life whenever he's falling asleep,
So
which turns out to
Aragon,
be the elf from the beginning.
yes,
Yes.
and he
It's
gets captured by, what was
it's
it, soldiers? Just
after
random
it's
people?
after the ambush at Drosleona that he and Murtagh start going towards Gilead because the Razak blades are often poisoned and Brahm doesn't survive the attack. So
Yes,
rather
Brahm
than trying to
dies.
go back for the Razak, Eragon decides that he needs more allies if he's going to take them down. So they start trying to find this mysterious lady
The
from his
Varden.
dreams. And that's when they come across Gilead, where he gets ambushed. Again, and this time fully captured and brought to jail. It's
If you
during
can't
this time that
tell,
he meets. He gets his first glimpse at Arya being carried throughout the courtyard one day, and he also meets Durza, a shade,
yes,
yes,
that
a
I do
being of
know.
immense power.
Yeah, all sorts of, the food, the drink, they're
Yes,
poisoned to dull his senses. Eventually, he catches on and he
yes,
stops eating and drinking as much to get back to normal.
yeah.
And like right when he goes to, I think he does bust out of his cell, but then
Yep.
right at that moment, Saphira and Murtagh show up as well, right? So it was kind of like,
At that moment, a bunch of soldiers show up, and then some old man draws a bow and starts shooting them and reveals himself to be Murtagh, who had
yeah, so
jumped
like
in to save him.
it was like
Yes,
luck of the draw. He
yes.
had finally gotten over the food numbing poison,
Yeah, good old
and
infinite luck Aragon over there.
yeah, and
Yeah,
so right before they dip out, he's like, "I gotta save this
yes.
elf.
She's
She's
here, and I know
looking
she's here.
mighty
We gotta
hot.
get her
I
out
gotta
too.
go get her right
Yes,
now."
yes.
So they get her. They all three leave, and
Durza catches up
it
to them.
they're on the road heading towards the Bior Mountains where the Varden are.
Yes.
They're on the road for like a month, I want to say,
They
and
escape Gilead uh, with a bunch of fanfare. Like, Saphira tears the roof off a building, and then they start racing towards the mountains, which is where they believe they start racing towards the Hatterack Desert because it's the easiest place to lose the army.
That's right, the Hatterack
They
Desert.
spend 4 or 5 days on the road before Aragon finally manages to make contact with Arya, who's in a comatose state the whole time.
He contacts her
Yes,
through her mind, which is something that he has,
his magic
he does with
powers.
Saphira all the
Yep.
time. And it's also a
Yes,
very prominent uh thing of like that's the
yes.
most common type of magic
That people can
in the
do
books
is
that I've
touching
read.
minds. Yeah.
Yeah, is touching and contacting and controlling with the
Yes.
mind. So
Unlike most
while
magic,
Arya,
it's one of the few things that Brahm tells him about that it seems that anybody with enough training can figure out. Most other
right,
types of magic use something else. You have
yeah,
to
so
have some innate ability or whatever in order to draw on magic in other forms.
right,
Yep.
so they're on the road for about a week. Arya still hasn't waken up. So Aragon contacts her through her mind, and then Arya reveals to him that, hey, I've been poisoned, so
Yep.
I shut my body down. If I don't get healed within,
Another four
um,
days.
yeah, I'll
Yeah.
die. And she basically uses her like her thoughts to show Aragon where the Varden are. After getting him to swear to her in the ancient language that he is not a spy, so basic, which also sets up. It was discussed earlier in the book, but this, reinforces it. If you say something in the ancient language,
Yes.
it is absolutely true and
You
cannot be a
cannot
lie.
lie in the ancient language. So whatever you say, you are
Now,
bound by.
if you believe it to be
Yes.
100% true, even though it's
Yes.
false, you could say it in the ancient language because you believe it to be
Yes.
true. So
They
they
race
find
across the
out where the
Hatterack
Varden
Desert. Yeah.
is. They head that way. They make it to the Varden. Um,
After being beset upon by another band of Urgles. And this time they're
yeah,
bigger and faster than all the other ones.
their call is what
Yes.
they are
Yes.
called. They are basically the peak version of the Urgles. They are the ones that have big horns. They are the ones that are most likely nine
Yeah.
foot tall.
Yep.
They are
Big,
important.
angry monsters.
Yep.
Yeah.
Monsters is harsh. Anyway,
I'm sorry. I'm sorry to all the
uh,
Urgles and Cole out there watching.
they make it to the Varden,
Yes.
and the Varden is very suspicious. They have their magicians, probe their
Yes.
minds to
One of the
make sure
twins.
they're not enemies. This is where uh this is where Murtagh is revealed to be Morzan's son, right?
It's just before this. No, no, no.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
yeah, yeah. You're completely right. It's during this. They go to
Yeah,
probe
because he's
people's
talking to
minds to.
Aragon. They're talking
Yes,
to
yes,
each
yes,
other in the
yes.
cell, right? And he tells them
The way it works is, in order to let people meet the Varden, they have to make sure they're
not
honest and
spies,
upright
yeah,
people.
of
So they
course.
search through their memories, and Murtagh doesn't want it to happen. With the help of Aragon and a dwarf by the name of Auric, they manage to keep the twins from inspecting his mind. However, as payment for that, Aragon demands to know
Why?
why Murtagh is so hesitant to let people know who he is and what's going on with him. And Murtagh reveals the fact that he is Morzan, the leader of the Forsworn's son.
Which I don't know why no one could put that together.
Yeah,
Morzan, Murtagh, come on.
yeah,
Anyway, so it was a good thing Brahm was dead when Murtagh was
yeah.
introduced
It's
because
a
I
good
feel
thing.
like he would have been
Yeah,
able to put that one together.
yeah,
But it is introduced, or it is, said
yeah,
that Murtagh is Morzan's son. He seems, at this point in the
yeah.
book, he seems like he hates Galbatorix and
Yes,
he hates Morzan. So that's good. Uh,
yeah.
we're in after the mines are cleared. We're introduced to Jormander, right? No, not Jormander. Who is Naswada's dad?
Al Jahad.
Al Jihad. Yes, it's been so
Yes,
long since I've heard that name.
you meet Al Jahad, the king of the Varden.
The king, yeah, Al Jihad, the
Yes,
king of the Varden. He is, from all the times that we hear him, he seems to be an upstanding
yes.
a very like an upstanding person who's literally just king of the Varden to get rid of Galbatorix. Like that's it. I feel like he has no ulterior motives,
Yep.
like
He's one of the
some kings
few
and
honest
queens.
people in power.
Yes.
Everybody who talks about it says he's a good, honest guy who's a brilliant tactician. Without him, everything would fall apart, die. And then you meet him and you're like, oh yeah, okay, yeah, that kind of makes sense.
Hrothgar is the Dwarven king, right?
Yes,
Yes, we meet him too.
yes. After the meeting with Al Jahad the next day, he has a meeting with Hrothgar, the king of the
Right.
dwarves, who are allowing the Varden to stay within their halls.
Yes. And this is all very short-lived because the
Yes.
Urgles are banging on the door outside.
And
So
then, like the very next morning,
Arya is awake
yes,
finally.
the very next morning, he is tested by the twins, and he's supposed to be tested by some of the soldiers to see like what his physical capabilities are, how useful he is, and then Arya shows up to pull him out of a tough spot with the twins.
And Arya straight
Yes.
wrecks him with the sword.
And that does just
Because
reinforce the idea that Brom had of even
elves
the
are
weakest
superior.
elf can
Yeah,
beat up a human, no problem.
yeah, no problem.
And then
Um,
yes,
yeah, and then the Urgles are banging on the door outside.
yes,
So everything that we've seen, the dwarves give Saphira
yes.
her
They give Saphira the
her
dragon armor.
armor.
Yeah. They
Yeah,
give what's his name, Aragon, a
Murtagh
set of
has been
rider
kept in a
armor.
cage all the
Murtagh
while
isn't kept in a
because
cage;
he
he's
is.
just kept in a room
Well,
because
yeah, you know
he
what I mean.
hasn't been proven a friend of the Varden, but he also hasn't done anything against them yet. So they're like, we're just gonna
But
put you in
then,
like a study room and leave you there.
when they're setting up for the fight, they
Yeah.
let Murtagh fight because
Yes.
they figure we need
They
all the help we
figure
can
all
get.
the help you can get. Yeah. And
Which, if
that
I
sets
was
up the
Murtagh, I would not fight with them after they left me in that room.
well.
You can
They gave
forget
him
it.
good food and books and everything.
Yeah,
So it's
that's
not
true.
like they treated him horribly.
And if I
Yeah.
remember correctly, Murtagh says they figured if I was evil, I couldn't do much anyway.
Yeah. They were like, if
So,
I was evil, they're already in a bad spot. Like, it's not
right.
going to change much. Yeah.
They get ready to
Yes.
fight.
And that
You know,
brings up
there's
the
a
Battle of
big battle.
Farthendur. Yeah.
Yeah, the big battle. Aragon is getting more proficient with magic. Um,
But this
Urgel's
battle
dying left and
is,
right. People dying left and
yeah.
right.
This battle pushes him
Uh,
to his limits and almost breaks the Varden.
right. And
Yes.
then Durza shows up,
Yeah.
and Aragon gets separated, if I remember
Yes.
correctly.
There's a what's her face? Saphira takes a blow to the chest from one of the coals, which bends her armor, so she has to fly away so that they can remove the armor from her so that she can breathe better. While
Right.
Arya is doing that, Eragon moves down into the city so that he
Where
can check
Durza is.
for. Yeah, because there was commotion, they're thinking that people might be tunneling up behind them. So he races down into the city, separating himself from both Saphira and Arya,
And Arya,
and
his
finds
only
himself face
help.
to face with a bunch of Urgles and Durza.
Right.
Yeah, and all the old
It's
stories say
basically
that only one person in history has killed a Shade in a one-on-one fight, and he's
right.
about to face a Shade in a one-on-one fight.
And
So
it's a mainly, if I remember correctly, it's a battle of the minds mainly.
it starts out, yes, it starts out like a regular battle, but quickly Aragon has to realize that Dursa is powerful enough to not just fight with arms, but to fight with magic as well. So they're both constantly trying to break into each other's minds while also trading blows.
Which takes incredible
Yes.
concentration.
Yes. And it's during that where Aragon
We get
accidentally
a
breaks into Durza's mind and
we get a glimpse
turns out to
of
be a mistake
Durza's.
because all of Durza's memories come rushing through.
Yeah, we get a
Yes.
glimpse of his backstory, which I would love to read. Even a small, like a short story
Yeah.
about Durza. I think that would be interesting.
Durza turns out to have a tragic backstory. The way shades are created is when a regular person summons a spirit that they can't control, and the spirit inhabits their body. So Durza is essentially possessed into being the person that he is now.
But then he overcomes that and is about to kill Aragon, right? And then
It never affects Durza. It only affects Aragon because Aragon
yeah,
broke into his mind, and then all of his memories came rushing through, which debilitates Aragon. he lands a slash against Aragon's back and just starts like gloating over him because he's about to kill a
cuts
riot
open
group.
Aragon's back, which
Yeah.
will just completely wreck his future.
Yes.
Uh,
And then
Arya
Arya,
and Saphira come crashing through
yeah, they
the
shatter.
giant
Yes, the
crystal.
rose, the star
Yes.
rose.
Yeah, that. And then that distracts Durza for enough time for Aragon to come up and stab him through
Yeah,
the heart. So once again, a shade has been defeated.
yeah. Shade has been defeated, and Aragon, 100% still a kill. So
And this is when things get interesting because now the Urgles, if I remember correctly,
yes, all the
seems like
Urgles
they are in a
immediately.
haze. Like they wake
Yes,
up,
yes,
it
yes,
seems
yes.
like, right?
Yep.
And then they start fighting each other because they're
Yes.
still in warring clans.
Yes. They realize
So
it's like that they were possessed by something, and then they start fighting each other, and so what's it called? The Varden and the dwarves, who were essentially
are
losing the
able to
battle,
repel them.
now have the ability to win and rout the Urgles from Farthen Door.
Which I really like that the Urgles were being possessed here
Yes.
because it
Yes.
sets up for something later on.
Yep. And that's
With
essentially the
the
end of the
whole
book.
book, yeah, that's
Yeah.
essentially the end of the book. The battle is what not over, but technically over.
The battle is over. They're just clearing out the old tunnels
Right.
underneath Farthen Door in the Bjor Mountains of the last
In
of the
the
Urgles.
yeah, in the beginning of the
Yes.
second book, it picks up like immediately.
Yeah, it picks up like seconds later. Yeah, yeah,
And if you read through all the books, they're all back to back to back to back.
yeah.
So
Once
that's why I
again,
think this show that's coming on Disney Plus, I feel like it would be better if it was animated
yeah,
because you are able to control the age of the characters a whole lot
yeah,
more. Plus, you have things like Aragon being 16, Arya being 1,000.
yeah,
I feel like that's going to translate really bad in
yeah.
live action.
It
Because, I mean,
also,
you see a show like Stranger Things, these kids grow up
yeah,
and they change drastically from
yeah,
young
yeah,
to their mid 20s.
yeah. It happens.
So if you cast a young character to play Aragon,
Yeah,
he's gonna grow up. But in the YouTube Q&A, Christopher Paolini said that he doesn't know if there is a plan after Aragon is done.
yeah,
Which, if the show Aragon does well, I don't see why Disney wouldn't
yeah,
continue it because it ends in a weird
yeah.
spot. End with the
It definitely
final.
sets up more books. Yeah,
Oh, for
yeah.
sure, for sure.
That said, this just goes to show why I think 16 is a little too young to be
I
doing a
feel
lot of
like
this stuff.
I feel like 18, 19 would
Yeah, I
be
really
better.
the only thing I don't like about this is just how young he is, which again, it's not a full fault. It's just something that I personally don't care for. Like if he had
Yeah.
3 or 4 years to mature and learn alongside Saphira, then 100%, yeah. But if you
Well, the
took a
crazy thing
thousand
is,
modern 16-year-olds and put them in that situation, 1,000 of them
well,
would die horrifically.
yeah. The crazy thing is, though, Aragon matures,
Yes.
like 30 years
Yeah.
throughout the entire series, even though
Yeah,
he's still like
that's the most
18.
that's one of the more
I
realistic things of Aragon ends up in a situation that forces him to either die
age
or
quickly.
mature. So he ends up
Yeah,
becoming mature
and I
beyond
think
his years towards the end of the
I
book.
think by the end of the series, I think he's only like 17, 18. But like when I'm reading it, I feel like this
Yeah.
this kid is now like in his 30s because of the
He's
way he
talking like
acts
he's been
and
here for a
grows.
while.
Yeah, because he's a 16-year-old farm boy, and all of a sudden he's thrown into war, and
Yeah.
then later on in the series he's thrown into politics, and
Yeah.
like he just learns and matures, and it's like adapt or get run over,
Yeah.
and he adapts really well, I think.
Yeah.
Now, what was your favorite part about Aragon?
I don't know. I really like Brahm just because it's nice to have a mysterious mentor, but to be honest, probably the whole instance inside the Bjor Mountains. Everything up to that was good, but it seems like he really
Hit his
once
stride.
yeah once he got out of the out of the Empire, he definitely hit his stride and had all the time that he wanted to push Eragon wherever he wanted. So all of his time spent inside the Bjor Mountains with the Varden, it's just Eragon kind of comes into his own and he has time to adapt to stuff. Like he meets Al Jahad and Al Jahad's like, hey, I'm not going to try and influence you, but everybody else you meet for the rest of your life will. So you should probably get ready for that. And
Yeah.
Aragon actually has time to sit down and think about what that means. And then he meets Hrothgar and he's like, yeah, okay, I can start to see what Al Jahad was talking about. So I like the whole of the
Yes.
book, but the depiction of that battle is masterfully done. And it's good to be able to give a character time to grow. And that's what he really has inside the Bjor Mountains and with the Varden at the end of that book.
Yeah, because the whole rest of the time of him getting to that
Yeah.
was kind of like like he was stalling. Like the whole time he was in the Hatterack Desert, he was just agitated like the
Yes.
whole time. So
Well,
he
and
wasn't really
believably so.
growing and
Yeah.
maturing. Well, yeah, because he
Yeah.
had to use his energy to get water and all that,
He was
and then
fighting
he had to deal
everything
with
to survive.
Murtagh.
Yeah.
You listened to the audiobook, right?
Yes.
Murtagh was Irish or something like
Yeah, yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah. The dude gives him a 100% Irish tone.
Dude, that guy the guy who did the audiobook is amazing because he had a
Yes.
different accent for
Yes,
everybody.
yes. He's good. The only problem with it is the second time Aragon meets Hrothgar, the first time he does it, he gives him like a solid bassy tone, and I'm like, okay, yeah. And then the second time he talks with Hrothgar, the dude doing the audiobook gives him like the old man on the mountainside, the whole, oh, Sonny, it's been
Yeah,
years. And I'm like, what the heck? What happened to the old guy?
right.
Yeah.
But
But beyond that, the audiobook is solid.
I think my I oh man, it's just Brahm is just one of those characters
Yes.
that I wish survived the whole time, but I
Yes, yes,
understand why he did it. He's just such a great character though
Brom is an
that
amazing
I
character. And he's
that I didn't
tragic.
want to die,
Yeah.
but that was his destiny
Yeah.
to die at that time. And
You're 100% correct.
everything we learn about Brahm after
Yes.
the first book, it just gets better.
Yeah. Nothing,
Um,
at no point does Brahm's reputation or character get diminished. Every time you
No,
see or
it
hear
only
about
gets
him,
better.
he's just a better person than you expected.
yeah,
Yeah. That even
he's
plays
like
with the
Obi-Wan of
yeah, like even more so than Obi-Wan because there's the whole conversation with Angela who ends up in Farthendur where he talks to her a little bit about Brahm and mentions that he's dead and she mentions not that she had read his future but that she had looked into his future and predicted that
only
Brahm would
failure.
fail at everything he tried except for
except one thing, killing Morzan, right?
Yes. Morzan,
Um,
killing Morzan is the only thing that he's supposed to have done correctly. Everything else he did throughout his life, even though he was in a relationship with a woman that he loved, even though he tried to train Aragon, even though he tried to do all of these things,
he tried
he
to
would
help
inevitably fail
yeah.
no matter what.
We learned that Brahm was a writer.
Yes.
Uh,
Brom
forgot to cover that.
turns out to be a writer, which makes complete sense.
Yes,
It tells you pretty early that Brom was a writer.
right. Solom Bum, which is a weird cat,
Yes.
who hangs out with Angela all the time, gives
Yes.
Aragon
A
a
couple
little
of
prophecy,
yeah, a couple
little
of hints.
tidbits there.
Yeah.
Something about when you need a weapon, look under the roots of the Manoa tree, and also
When
the
things are
vault
most dire,
mentioned.
he says like look to the vault of souls.
Right, which is crazy because that prophecy isn't like finally fulfilled until like the last 100 pages of the last book. Like like it seems like he's had this whole thing set up from
Yes.
the beginning.
Which is
like
good.
right. I mean,
Yeah,
that's how
that
you
he's
do it.
thought
If you're
ahead.
gonna write a
Yeah.
series, write it all out. At least the main plot points, and then do that.
The problem is the whole time that was going on, every time something happened, in the back of my mind, I was like, okay, this is it. He's gonna use the U roots. And then it doesn't happen, and I'm like, okay, next time though. Next time
The
he's
U
calling on
roots?
the roots.
Oh, where
Yes.
when you did the thing.
Yeah, because that happens pretty early on in the movie and all that. And I was just
Yeah,
looking
yeah.
for
I don't think he
opportunities to
ever.
fulfill that prophecy.
I don't think he ever did that. I mean, he might have in the underground tunnels of
No, he
Farther, but
didn't, and that was the point of I
I
just
didn't.
kept trying to fulfill the prophecy for him. I was like,
Right.
okay, this is it. He's doing it now, and then it doesn't happen.
Right.
Yeah.
So
All in
that's where
all.
the first book ends.
Yeah.
I gotta say, my favorite part was traveling with Brahm and the introduction
Yeah,
of
that's so good.
Murtag. Like that whole area is good, and then the battle, like Jay of J and J said,
Yes.
the
Thank you, Jay.
battle under Farther is just, it just
Yes.
it's it's descriptive and it's action.
Yeah.
Like it's
It's
like a great,
descriptive
like I said,
enough to
it's
give you
great.
what you need to know, but it
Yeah,
doesn't
like
hold
it's right
anything.
in that
Yeah.
sweet spot
Yeah.
of like not being too descriptive and not being not enough descriptive. It's like right in the middle. I
Yeah.
think it's really good.
He did a really good job with that as well by giving Aragon Saphira, they had moments where they could just take off into the air and look over the battlefield. And that also gave him a narrative reason to pull out and tell you about what was going on everywhere else, not just in Aragon's immediate vicinity. So yeah.
Right, which also I think just shows how well of an author he is because in the
Yeah.
next book we get a bunch of chapters that's not from just Aragon's perspective.
Yes.
Which I get the first one being all Aragon's perspective because the book is named Eragon
Yeah.
and it's setting up, the whole reason for the Varden to continue. Uh but like after reading The Fork, the Witch and the Worm, which is the collection of short stories from Allegagium, it just, it makes me hungry for more, of this series.
Yep.
Because I mean, it's not that it's left um hollow or like the series doesn't have a bad ending in my opinion. I know a lot of people think that the series has a bad ending because of something I won't say yet, but I don't think it has a bad ending
Yeah.
because it's been setting up the ending for forever.
Yeah.
So, but in my opinion, I feel like that ending just leaves it to where he could easily come back and write more
Yeah.
about it. I feel like the ending was written specifically for him to be able to come back to it, which he did eventually with the collection of short stories, which picks up a year after the last book and
Yeah.
talks more about Aragon and what he's doing and all that. And he can easily continue because in that collection of short stories, he sets up something that could, continue a whole new
Yeah.
series.
And he's got plenty of
So,
old backstory stuff. Like they touch on
yeah,
people's backstories, but they never fully get into it. So we don't know much about what Brahm actually did. We don't know anything. We don't know hardly anything about
yeah,
Angela. We don't know hardly anything about Durza. There's tons of stuff that he could play with. And there's a ton
oh,
of
for
stuff that we
sure.
would love to hear. But
Yeah,
yeah.
for sure.
All in all, Aragon, solid book. Definitely worth the read.
Solid book. Give it a read if you haven't read it. If you are going to watch the show, I recommend reading the book first.
Yeah.
That way, you can watch the show and still know what's coming.
Yeah.
I think that is a good idea. Um, so that's Aragon for you right there. Next time we get together and talk, it'll be about Eldest, and then it'll be after that it'll be Bersinger, then Inheritance. We might tack on the Fork, the Witch, and the Worm with Inheritance because it is just a short story
Yeah.
that doesn't really hold like a lot of significance. There's little tidbits in there, so like if you read Inheritance, see if you can't read the Fork, the Witch, and the Worm. We could just tack that on to the
Yeah.
end, and then we can come back and talk about the series as a whole
Yeah.
and talk about what we want for the show. And then that will be my contribution to this channel because after that, we'll talk about books that Joseph likes and we'll read those and we'll do that. And then we'll just go back and forth from there.
Yep.
So don't
This
expect
isn't
these
the
videos
last
to
that we
come
think.
on any schedule.
Yeah. That too. This isn't probably going to be the last one that we do, but Lord knows if we know when we're doing another one. So,
Right.
yeah,
Um,
keeping your eye out.
yeah, we'll just
You found your way to the
update the
video.
channel.
You know how to find more of us.
Yep,
So,
stay here.
yeah.
Subscribe to
Check
J
back
and J
once every
because
3 months. You might find something new.
all right. Thanks for
Yep.
listening.
Yep.